Sergeant Marcus Kane adjusted his scope for the third time in 10 minutes, watching the enemy positions through the morning haze. The weight of his rifle felt familiar in his hands, like an old friend that had never let him down. 3 years of combat in this godforsaken desert had taught him patience, but today something felt different. The air carried tension thicker than the usual dust and heat. The forward operating base buzzed with unusual activity. Soldiers moved with quick, nervous steps between bunkers and supply tents. Radio chatter filled the command post with urgent whispers and coded messages that Marcus could hear from his overwatch position on the eastern ridge. He had been stationed here for 18 hours, providing sniper support for what command called a routine patrol sweep. Nothing about this felt routine. Captain Reynolds approached Marcus's position, his face grim under the desert camouflage paint. "Kane, we've got a situation developing. Intelligence reports indicate enemy forces are massing for a major push. They're bringing everything they've got." Marcus lowered his rifle and turned to face his commanding officer. Reynolds was a good man, one of the few officers who understood the value of his snipers. Unlike some commanders who treated them as afterthoughts, Reynolds knew that a well-placed marksman could change the entire flow of a battle. "What's the timeline, sir?" Marcus asked, checking his ammunition count out of habit. He carried 200 rounds of match-grade ammunition, each cartridge capable of reaching out to 800 meters with deadly precision. His rifle, a customized version of the standard-issue marksman weapon, had accounted for 47 confirmed enemy combatants over the past year. "Unknown," Reynolds replied. "Could be hours, could be minutes. We're pulling back to defensive positions around the main base. I need you to maintain overwatch here as long as possible, then fall back with the rear guard." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of the assignment. As the designated marksman for Charlie Company, his job was to provide covering fire for withdrawing troops while gathering intelligence on enemy movements. It was dangerous work that required someone who could think independently and make split-second decisions under extreme pressure. The captain handed him an updated communication device. New encryption protocols. Command wants constant updates on enemy positions and strength estimates. You're our eyes and ears up here. After Reynolds left, Marcus settled back into his shooting position. His hide was well constructed, using natural terrain features and camouflage materials to blend seamlessly with the rocky outcropping. 3 escape routes led down from his position, each carefully planned and rehearsed during quieter moments over the past weeks. The morning sun climbed higher, turning the desert into a furnace. Marcus sipped water from his hydration system and continued his methodical observation of the valley below. Through his scope, he could see the main supply route that connected their forward base to the larger installation 20 kilometers to the south. This road was their lifeline, and he knew the enemy would try to cut it. At 1100 hours, Marcus spotted the first signs of enemy movement. Dust clouds appeared on the northern horizon, too organized to be natural wind patterns. He adjusted his scope to maximum magnification and began counting vehicles. What he saw made his blood run cold. Armored personnel carriers, supply trucks, and what appeared to be artillery pieces moved in a coordinated convoy toward their position. This wasn't the small insurgent group that intelligence had predicted. This was a major military operation with serious firepower and professional organization. Marcus keyed his radio. "Overwatch to command. I have eyes on significant enemy movement. Count approximately 30 vehicles, including armor and artillery. This is not a minor probe. Repeat, this is a major assault force." The response came back immediately. "Command to Overwatch, confirm vehicle count, and provide detailed breakdown." Marcus spent the next 20 minutes cataloging everything he could see through his scope. Tank variants that he recognized from intelligence briefings, mobile artillery platforms, and trucks carrying what appeared to be specialized equipment. The enemy had clearly been planning this operation for months, possibly longer. "Overwatch to command. Confirmed count is 32 vehicles. I'm seeing main battle tanks, self-propelled artillery, and multiple troop transports. Estimated enemy strength is between 200 and 300 combatants. They're moving toward the western approach, likely planning to hit us from multiple directions. Static filled his earpiece before the response came. Command to all units, initiate immediate withdrawal to fallback positions. Overwatch, maintain position, and continue reporting until final extraction order. Marcus acknowledged the transmission and continued his observation. The enemy convoy had stopped approximately 5 kilometers away, just outside the range of the base's defensive weapons. Through his scope, he watched as they began deploying their forces in what appeared to be textbook military tactics. These weren't untrained insurgents. They moved with the precision of regular army units. Individual soldiers dismounted from their vehicles and began setting up crew-served weapons. Marcus counted at least 6 heavy machine gun positions and what appeared to be mortar teams. The enemy commander clearly understood modern combined arms warfare and was preparing for a coordinated assault. The base below began its evacuation procedures. Marcus watched through his scope as supply trucks loaded with essential equipment headed south toward the main installation. Medical personnel moved casualties from the small aid station into armored ambulances. The entire operation proceeded with military efficiency, but Marcus could see the urgency in every movement. His radio crackled with constant updates from withdrawing units. Alpha Team clear of western perimeter. Bravo Team moving to secondary positions. Medical convoy departing with 3 priority casualties. Each transmission reminded Marcus that dozens of his fellow soldiers were depending on his accurate intelligence reports. At 1300 hours, the enemy began their advance. Marcus watched through his scope as the first wave of infantry moved forward under cover of armored vehicles. They advanced in small teams, using natural terrain features and coordinated fire support exactly as he had been trained to do. The professional competence of their movement confirmed his worst suspicions about this enemy force. Overwatch to command, enemy infantry advance has commenced. They're using proper fire and movement tactics. I'm seeing evidence of military training and coordination. This is not a typical insurgent attack. The response from command carried a tone of barely controlled tension. Command to Overwatch, we copy all. Continue reporting and prepare for extraction on my command. Marcus settled deeper into his position and began engaging individual targets. His first shot took down an enemy machine gunner at 600 meters. The heavy bullet struck center mass, dropping the man instantly and disrupting the entire crew's advance. His second shot eliminated a team leader who was coordinating movement from behind a large boulder. Each shot required careful consideration. Marcus had to balance immediate tactical impact against the risk of revealing his position. Enemy forces would eventually locate his muzzle flash or identify his hiding spot through careful observation. When that happened, he would become the target of every weapon system they could bring to bear on his position. The enemy advance slowed as Marcus continued his precise harassment. Individual soldiers became more cautious, moving between cover points instead of advancing boldly across open ground. Squad leaders spent more time planning their movements instead of pushing forward aggressively. His presence was multiplying the defensive effectiveness of the withdrawing base personnel. Radio traffic indicated that the main evacuation was proceeding ahead of schedule. Essential personnel and equipment had successfully reached the southern installation, leaving only a small rear guard to cover the final withdrawal. Marcus's Overwatch position was buying them precious time to complete their escape. At 1400 hours, enemy artillery began falling on the forward base. Marcus watched through his scope as shells impacted the abandoned positions, sending up columns of smoke and debris. The enemy was using their heavy weapons to clear the area before advancing their infantry for final occupation. It was standard military procedure, but it also meant they were committed to taking and holding the position. Overwatch to command, enemy artillery bombardment has commenced on primary base location. They're using heavy mortars and what appears to be self-propelled howitzers. Accuracy is good. They've clearly ranged the position in advance. Command to Overwatch, final extraction order is coming. Prepare to move to alternate extraction point Delta. Transportation will be available at 1600 hours. Marcus acknowledged the transmission and began preparing to withdraw from his position. He carefully packed his essential equipment while maintaining observation of the enemy advance. The extraction point was 3 kilometers south of his current position, requiring him to move across open ground while enemy forces were actively searching for him. Before leaving his hide, Marcus took one final shot at a high-value target. An enemy officer was directing artillery fire from a position 700 meters away, using radio equipment and pointing toward various targets on the base. The shot was difficult due to range and wind conditions, but Marcus had made longer shots under worse circumstances. He controlled his breathing and squeezed the trigger during his natural respiratory pause. The bullet flew true, striking the enemy officer in the upper torso and eliminating him instantly. The artillery fire became less accurate immediately afterward, as the replacement commander lacked the same knowledge of the target area. Marcus quickly gathered his equipment and began moving toward the extraction point. He used a route that kept him below the ridgeline while providing multiple covered positions in case he encountered enemy patrols. The 3-kilometer movement would take him approximately 90 minutes if he encountered no resistance. The first kilometer proceeded without incident. Marcus moved carefully from cover to cover, stopping frequently to observe the surrounding terrain for signs of enemy movement. His training emphasized patience and thorough observation over speed, especially when operating alone in hostile territory. During his second rest stop, Marcus heard helicopter rotors in the distance. He pulled out his field glasses and scanned the sky for aircraft. 2 enemy helicopters appeared over the northern ridge, obviously searching for withdrawing friendly forces. They flew in a systematic pattern that indicated they were hunting for specific targets rather than providing routine transportation. Marcus keyed his radio to warn the extraction team. Overwatch to command, I have enemy rotary wing aircraft conducting search operations in my area. 2 helicopters appearing to hunt for withdrawing personnel. Extraction point may be compromised. The response came back immediately. Command to Overwatch, we copy enemy aircraft. Extraction team is aware and taking evasive measures. Continue to alternate extraction point Echo. New timeline is 1700 hours. The change in extraction points added another 2 kilometers to Marcus's movement, but it also moved him away from the obvious helicopter search pattern. He adjusted his route and continued moving south, staying the deepest cover available while maintaining progress toward the new rendezvous location. At 1530 hours, Marcus encountered his first enemy patrol. 3 soldiers were moving along a game trail approximately 200 meters from his position. They carried modern assault rifles and wore military-style equipment that confirmed his earlier assessment of their professional training. These were not local insurgents playing at warfare. Marcus remained motionless in his concealed position while the patrol passed. Engaging them would create noise and muzzle flash that might attract the searching helicopters. His mission was to reach the extraction point, not to engage in unnecessary combat that could compromise his escape. The patrol moved past without detecting his presence, but their route indicated that enemy forces were actively searching for withdrawing friendly personnel. Marcus would need to be even more careful during his remaining movement to the extraction point. He resumed his careful advance, moving from cover to cover while constantly scanning for additional enemy patrols. The terrain became more difficult as he moved into the broken country south of the main valley. Rocky outcroppings provided excellent concealment, but also created numerous potential ambush sites where enemy forces could remain hidden. At 1600 hours, Marcus reached a position overlooking the new extraction point. The location appeared secure, with good fields of fire and multiple approach routes for the extraction team. He settled into a temporary observation position and began scanning the surrounding area for signs of enemy activity. His radio crackled with an incoming transmission. Command to Overwatch. Extraction delayed due to enemy air activity. New timeline is 1800 hours. Maintain position and continue observation. The delay concerned Marcus, but he acknowledged the transmission and prepared for an extended wait. 2 additional hours in enemy territory increased his risk of detection, but he had enough water and ammunition to maintain his position if necessary. The extraction team was taking appropriate precautions to avoid leading enemy forces to his location. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus observed increased enemy helicopter activity in the area. The aircraft were conducting systematic searches of likely extraction points and withdrawal routes. Their pilots clearly understood military tactics and were checking the most probable locations where friendly forces might try to escape. At 1700 hours, one of the helicopters approached Marcus's area. He remained motionless in his concealment while the aircraft circled overhead, its crew scanning the ground through optical equipment. The helicopter hovered directly above his position for nearly 10 minutes before moving on to search other areas. Marcus's radio remained silent during the helicopter's presence. The extraction team was maintaining proper radio discipline to avoid electronic detection. Only after the aircraft moved away did he receive his next transmission. Command to Overwatch. Extraction proceeding as planned. Maintain position and prepare for pickup at designated time. Marcus acknowledged the transmission and continued his vigilant observation of the surrounding terrain. The successful completion of his mission depended on maintaining his concealment for just 1 more hour while avoiding detection by increasingly aggressive enemy search efforts. The sun began setting behind the western mountains, casting long shadows across the desert landscape. Marcus checked his equipment one final time and prepared for extraction. His mission had provided crucial intelligence about enemy capabilities and intentions while supporting the successful withdrawal of friendly forces from an untenable position. Soon he would be safely back at the main base, ready to brief intelligence officers on what he had observed during his extended Overwatch mission. The information he had gathered would be essential for planning future operations against this well-equipped and professionally trained enemy force. Marcus had no way of knowing that this would be his last successful extraction for quite some time. 3 months after the successful extraction from Forward Operating Base Delta, Sergeant Marcus Kane found himself assigned to a new mission that would test every skill he had developed during his military career. Intelligence reports indicated that enemy forces had established a major supply depot in the mountains, and command needed detailed reconnaissance before planning a full assault. The mission brief took place in the secure conference room at Regional Base Alpha. Colonel Harrison, the battalion commander, spread aerial photographs across the conference table while Marcus and 5 other soldiers studied the terrain features. The target area was located in mountainous country 40 kilometers north of their current position. Gentlemen, this facility represents a significant threat to our operations in this sector, Colonel Harrison began. Intelligence estimates indicate they're storing weapons, ammunition, and equipment sufficient to supply major operations for 6 months. We need detailed information about defensive positions, guard routines, and structural layout before we can plan an effective assault. Marcus examined the photographs carefully. The facility was built into a natural valley, surrounded by steep ridges that provided excellent defensive positions. Multiple buildings were visible, along with what appeared to be heavy weapons emplacements and vehicle parking areas. This would be a challenging reconnaissance mission requiring careful planning and flawless execution. The reconnaissance team will consist of 6 personnel, the colonel continued. Sergeant Kane will provide sniper support and long-range observation. The mission duration is estimated at 5 days, with extraction planned for the 6th day at predetermined coordinates. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, the team leader, pointed to various features on the photographs. We'll establish an observation post here on the eastern ridge, approximately 800 meters from the target facility. This position provides good fields of observation while maintaining sufficient distance to avoid detection. Marcus nodded his understanding. 800 meters was well within the effective range of his rifle while being far enough away to provide security for the observation team. The elevated position would allow him to cover the entire facility and provide early warning if enemy forces discovered their presence. The team spent the remainder of the day studying intelligence reports and planning their approach route. The target area was located in hostile territory with numerous enemy patrols and checkpoints. They would need to move carefully and avoid detection during their insertion phase. Equipment preparation took place the following morning. Marcus cleaned and inspected his rifle while loading specialized ammunition for long-range precision work. He carried 300 rounds of match-grade ammunition along with his standard load of survival equipment and reconnaissance gear. The team also received specialized communication equipment for reporting their observations. A satellite communication system would allow them to transmit detailed intelligence reports back to headquarters without relying on conventional radio networks that enemy forces might monitor. Lieutenant Parker, the team's intelligence specialist, briefed them on current enemy capabilities and recent activity in the target area. Latest reports indicate they've increased security around the facility. We're seeing additional guard posts and what appears to be improved early warning systems. This suggests they know we're interested in the location. The insertion would take place during darkness using helicopter transportation to a landing zone 15 kilometers from the target. From there, the team would move on foot through difficult mountain terrain while avoiding known enemy patrol routes and observation posts. On the night of insertion, Marcus and his teammates boarded the transport helicopter at 2300 hours. The flight proceeded without incident, using nap-of-the-earth navigation to avoid enemy radar systems. The pilots were experienced special operations aviators who understood the importance of covert insertion techniques. The landing zone was located in a narrow valley surrounded by steep ridges. Marcus and the team quickly unloaded their equipment and moved away from the helicopter as it departed for the return flight to base. Within minutes, they were alone in hostile territory with only their training and equipment for protection. Master Sergeant Rodriguez led the team through the initial movement phase. They traveled in single file with 10-meter intervals between team members, using night vision equipment to navigate through the rocky terrain. Marcus carried the heavy sniper rifle along with a share of team equipment, but his conditioning allowed him to maintain the pace without difficulty. The first night's movement covered 8 kilometers through increasingly difficult terrain. The team established a temporary hide position before dawn and remained concealed throughout the daylight hours while enemy aircraft conducted routine patrols overhead. Their camouflage and discipline kept them undetected during several close passes by reconnaissance helicopters. During the day, Marcus used his rifle scope to conduct long-range observation of distant terrain features. He identified several enemy positions that had not appeared in the intelligence briefings, including what appeared to be a communications facility on a ridge 5 kilometers to the north. This information would be valuable for future operations in the area. The second night's movement brought them within sight of their objective. The team established their final observation post on the eastern ridge at a location that provided excellent fields of view while offering multiple escape routes, if their position was discovered by enemy forces. Marcus set up his rifle in a carefully prepared shooting position that allowed him to observe the entire facility through his telescopic sight. The distance to the nearest target building measured exactly 760 meters according to his laser rangefinder. Wind conditions were favorable with minimal deflection at that range. Through his scope, Marcus could see that the intelligence photographs had not captured the full extent of the facility. Additional buildings were hidden in depressions and behind camouflage netting. Guard towers that appeared unmanned in aerial photographs actually contained active sentries with heavy weapons. "Command, this is Recon 6. Rodriguez transmitted through the satellite communication system. We are in position and beginning detailed observation. Initial assessment indicates target is larger and better defended than intelligence estimates suggested." The response came back immediately. "Recon 6, this is Command. We copy your transmission. Provide detailed breakdown of defensive positions and personnel strength estimates." Marcus spent the next several hours cataloging everything he could observe through his rifle scope. guard positions, patrol routes, vehicle movements, and daily routine activities were all carefully documented and transmitted back to headquarters. His training as a sniper included extensive instruction in intelligence gathering and target analysis. The facility contained at least 12 major buildings along with numerous smaller structures and storage areas. Marcus counted 47 enemy personnel during the first day of observation, but this number clearly represented only a portion of the total garrison strength. Many personnel were probably inside buildings or working night shifts. Heavy weapons positions included 4 machine gun bunkers positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire across the main approaches to the facility. Marcus also identified what appeared to be mortar positions and at least 1 anti-aircraft gun emplacement. The defensive arrangements showed professional military planning. "This place is built like a fortress," Specialist Martinez, the team's demolitions expert, whispered during their second day of observation. "They've got interlocking fields of fire and multiple fallback positions. Taking this place is going to require serious firepower." Marcus continued his methodical observation and documentation. Through his scope, he watched enemy personnel conducting training exercises and maintenance activities. Their movements and procedures indicated regular military training rather than the casual approach typical of insurgent groups. On the third day of observation, Marcus noticed increased activity around one particular building that appeared to serve as the facility's command center. Senior personnel were arriving by helicopter and gathering for what appeared to be important meetings. This suggested that significant operations were being planned. "Command, this is Recon 6, Rodriguez transmitted. We're observing what appears to be a high-level planning conference. Multiple senior personnel have arrived by helicopter. This may indicate imminent enemy operations." The response from command carried urgent undertones. "Recon 6, this is command. Continue observation and report any indicators of enemy operational planning. This intelligence is priority 1. Marcus adjusted his rifle scope to focus on the command building's entrance. Through the powerful optics, he could see uniformed personnel entering and leaving the structure. Some wore insignia that he recognized from intelligence briefings as indicating field-grade officers. During the afternoon of their third day, Marcus observed a convoy of supply trucks arriving at the facility. The vehicles carried what appeared to be ammunition and equipment, including some items covered by heavy tarps that prevented identification. The steady stream of supplies confirmed that this was indeed a major logistical hub. "Command, this is Recon 6. Large supply convoy has arrived with unknown cargo. Recommend immediate priority collection on this facility. They're clearly preparing for major operations." The urgency in command's response was evident. "Recon 6, maintain observation and prepare for possible emergency extraction. Intelligence value of your reports has reached critical level." Marcus understood the implication. If enemy forces were planning major operations from this facility, his team might need to escape before those operations commenced. Extended reconnaissance missions always carried the risk of being trapped behind enemy lines during active combat operations. On their fourth night in position, the situation changed dramatically. Marcus was conducting routine observation when he noticed unusual activity around the perimeter guard positions. Instead of normal patrol routines, guards were moving to predetermined positions and establishing what appeared to be defensive preparations. "Something's happening," Marcus whispered to Rodriguez. "Guards are taking defensive positions. This isn't routine activity." Rodriguez immediately contacted command through the satellite communication system. "Command, this is Recon 6. We're observing defensive preparations at the target facility. Recommend immediate extraction authorization." The response came back within minutes. "Recon 6, extraction approval granted. Move to primary extraction point and prepare for pickup at 0300 hours." The team quickly gathered their equipment and prepared to move from their observation post. Marcus carefully packed his rifle and ammunition while ensuring that no evidence of their presence remained at the position. Professional reconnaissance teams left no trace that might compromise future operations. The movement to the extraction point required crossing 5 kilometers of difficult mountain terrain during darkness, while enemy forces were obviously alert for potential threats. Rodriguez led the team along predetermined escape routes that avoided known enemy positions and patrol areas. 2 kilometers into their movement, Marcus heard helicopter rotors approaching from the direction of the facility. Enemy search helicopters were launching to look for intruders in the area. The team immediately took cover under natural terrain features, while aircraft passed overhead using searchlights to scan the surrounding country. "They know we're here," Martinez whispered as the helicopters continued their search pattern. "Something must have given away our position." Marcus considered the possibilities while remaining motionless under his camouflage covering. Professional reconnaissance teams were trained to avoid detection, but enemy forces with modern equipment could sometimes locate even well-concealed positions through electronic means or thermal imaging systems. The team remained hidden for 30 minutes while helicopters searched the immediate area. Finally, the aircraft moved their search pattern to other locations, allowing the team to resume their movement toward the extraction point. Time was becoming critical, as they needed to reach the pickup location before dawn. Rodriguez pushed the pace during the final movement phase. The team moved as quickly as possible through the rocky terrain while maintaining noise discipline and staying alert for enemy patrols. Marcus carried his heavy rifle and equipment without complaint, understanding that their survival depended on reaching the extraction point on schedule. At 02:45 hours, the team reached the designated pickup location. The area appeared secure with no signs of enemy activity. Rodriguez established a defensive perimeter while Marcus and the other team members prepared for helicopter extraction. Marcus heard the approaching extraction aircraft exactly on schedule. The helicopter appeared over the ridge using night vision equipment to navigate in complete darkness. Professional military aviators were trained to conduct these operations under the most challenging conditions. The extraction proceeded smoothly until the helicopter was preparing for takeoff. At that moment, enemy forces opened fire from positions that had not been detected during the team's reconnaissance of the extraction area. Heavy machine gun fire and rocket-propelled grenades began impacting around the aircraft. Taking fire! Taking fire! The pilot transmitted over the aircraft's communication system. Multiple enemy positions engaging from the north ridge. The helicopter's gunners returned fire while the pilot attempted to gain altitude and escape the engagement area. Marcus and his team members provided additional fire support using their personal weapons, but they were clearly outnumbered and outgunned by the enemy forces. A rocket-propelled grenade struck the helicopter's tail rotor, causing immediate loss of control. The aircraft began spinning while the pilot fought to maintain some semblance of controlled flight. Marcus watched in horror as the helicopter crashed into the valley floor approximately 500 meters from the extraction point. "Aircraft down! Aircraft down!" Rodriguez shouted into his radio. Emergency extraction required immediately. The response from command was barely audible through static and electronic interference. Recon 6, heavy jamming, cannot, immediate extraction, wait for. Communications had been effectively cut off by enemy electronic warfare systems. Marcus and his team were stranded in hostile territory with enemy forces actively hunting for them. The situation had gone from routine extraction to survival emergency in a matter of seconds. Marcus checked his ammunition supply while the team took defensive positions around the crash site. He had approximately 200 rounds remaining along with his survival equipment and emergency supplies. The crashed helicopter crew members appear to have survived the impact, but several were obviously injured and would need medical attention. "We need to move away from the crash site," Rodriguez decided. "Enemy forces will concentrate their search here. Our only chance is to reach the alternate extraction point and try to re-establish communications." The alternate extraction point was located 15 kilometers south of their current position. Moving that distance through hostile territory while carrying injured personnel would be extremely difficult, but remaining near the crash site would guarantee capture or death. Marcus helped load the injured helicopter crew members onto improvised stretchers while the team prepared for an extended movement through enemy territory. His role would be to provide rear-guard security while the team moved toward their only remaining chance for survival. The movement away from the crash site became a desperate race against time and overwhelming enemy forces. Marcus found himself carrying Sergeant Williams, the helicopter's injured door gunner, while maintaining rear-guard security for the struggling group. The weight of both his sniper rifle and the wounded soldier tested his physical conditioning to its limits, but military training had prepared him for exactly these circumstances. Rodriguez led the team through terrain that became increasingly difficult as they moved away from the valley floor into the surrounding mountains. The injured helicopter pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Thompson, had suffered a serious leg fracture during the crash impact, requiring 2 team members to assist his movement. Progress was painfully slow compared to their normal operational pace. Enemy search helicopters resumed their activities at dawn, forcing the team to take cover whenever aircraft appeared overhead. The helicopters were using systematic search patterns that indicated professional military coordination rather than random hunting. Marcus realized that enemy forces understood basic search and rescue procedures and were applying them methodically to locate the survivors. "They're boxing us in," Marcus told Rodriguez during one of their concealment periods. Through his rifle scope, he had observed enemy patrol teams moving into positions that would block their access to the alternate extraction point. "They know where we're trying to go, and they're cutting off our escape routes." Rodriguez studied his map while considering their rapidly diminishing options. "We'll have to take a longer route through the western mountains. It adds another day to our movement, but it might keep us away from their search teams." The western route required climbing over a mountain ridge that rose nearly 2,000 feet above their current position. Carrying injured personnel over that terrain would be extremely challenging, but the alternatives were becoming impossible as enemy forces tightened their search perimeter. Marcus redistributed his equipment to make room for additional medical supplies and emergency water. His ammunition load was reduced to 150 rounds, but he kept his rifle and essential optics. As the team's designated marksman, his ability to engage enemy forces at long range might be their only advantage against superior numbers. The climb toward the ridge began during the second night after the helicopter crash. Marcus helped carry Thompson up the steep mountain slope while constantly scanning for enemy activity through his night vision equipment. The injured pilot was conscious, but clearly in severe pain despite the medications from their limited medical supplies. Progress was measured in hundreds of meters rather than kilometers. The combination of difficult terrain, injured personnel, and constant security requirements slowed their movement to a crawl. Marcus calculated that they would need at least 3 more days to reach the alternate extraction point at their current pace. "We're not going to make it," Specialist Martinez whispered during one of their rest stops. "They're going to find us before we can get out of these mountains." Marcus understood the young soldier's concern, but he also knew that negative thinking could become a self-fulfilling prophecy during survival situations. Military training emphasized maintaining positive mental attitude, even under the worst circumstances. "We'll make it," Marcus replied quietly. "We just need to keep moving and stay ahead of their search teams. Help is coming. We just need to survive long enough to reach it." On the 3rd day after the crash, the team reached the mountain ridge after an exhausting night of climbing. The view from the summit revealed the extent of enemy search operations. Marcus counted at least 6 helicopters operating in coordination with ground patrols that were systematically checking every possible hiding place in the valley below. Through his rifle scope, Marcus observed enemy soldiers moving through areas where the team had passed 2 days earlier. Their search techniques were thorough and professional, indicating that these troops had received training in tracking and pursuit operations. The enemy clearly understood that American reconnaissance teams were operating in their territory. Command, this is Recon 6. Rodriguez attempted to contact headquarters through the satellite communication system. We are continuing movement toward alternate extraction point. Casualties are stable, but require immediate medical attention upon extraction. Static and electronic interference made communication impossible. Enemy jamming equipment was blocking their satellite transmissions, leaving the team completely isolated from outside support. They would have to reach the extraction point and hope that rescue forces were monitoring the area. The descent from the ridge proved even more challenging than the climb. Thompson's broken leg made downward movement extremely painful, requiring frequent rest stops that exposed the team to increased risk of detection. Marcus positioned himself to provide overwatch while the others assisted the injured personnel. During one of their rest periods, Marcus spotted an enemy patrol moving along the valley floor approximately 1,000 meters below their position. 8 soldiers were following what appeared to be a tracking trail, possibly following signs left by the team during their earlier passage. Through his scope, Marcus could see that they carried modern equipment and moved with military precision. Contact below, Marcus whispered into his radio headset. 8 enemy personnel following our trail in the valley floor. Distance 1,000 meters and closing on our previous positions. Rodriguez acknowledged the report and accelerated the team's movement down the mountain slope. If enemy forces were following their trail, it was only a matter of time before they located the team's current position. Speed was now more important than stealth. The patrol below continued following the team's tracks throughout the afternoon. Marcus maintained observation through his rifle scope while helping Thompson navigate the difficult terrain. The enemy soldiers were skilled trackers who understood how to follow signs through Rocky Mountain country where most people would see nothing. As evening approached, the enemy patrol established a temporary camp in the valley approximately 2 kilometers from the team's position. Marcus watched through his scope as they set up camouflage positions and deployed sentries around their perimeter. These soldiers clearly intended to resume tracking at first light. We need to move during darkness, Rodriguez decided. If we stay ahead of them tonight, we might be able to reach the extraction point before they can catch us. Night movement with injured personnel through unfamiliar mountain terrain carried enormous risks, but remaining stationary would guarantee capture by the following patrol. Marcus helped prepare Thompson for extended movement while checking his own equipment and remaining ammunition. The team began their night movement at 2100 hours, using night vision equipment to navigate through terrain that was barely passable in daylight. Marcus alternated between helping carry Thompson and providing rear guard security. His rifle remained ready for immediate action if they encountered enemy forces. 3 hours into their movement, Marcus heard sounds behind them that indicated pursuit. The enemy patrol had resumed tracking during darkness, using techniques that suggested they possessed night vision equipment and professional training in pursuit operations. The gap between hunters and hunted was steadily closing. They're gaining on us, Marcus reported to Rodriguez. We need to do something to slow them down, or they're going to overtake us before dawn. Rodriguez considered their options while the team continued moving through the rocky terrain. Can you engage them from long range without compromising our position? Marcus evaluated the tactical situation. A successful ambush could eliminate or delay the pursuing patrol, but it would also reveal the team's general location to other enemy forces in the area. The sound of rifle fire would attract every search helicopter and ground patrol within 10 kilometers. I can take the shot, but it will bring every enemy unit in the area down on us, Marcus replied. We need to be ready to move fast after I engage. Rodriguez made the difficult command decision. Take the shot. We can't outrun them with injured personnel, so we need to eliminate the immediate threat. Marcus selected a firing position that provided good observation of the team's back trail while offering concealed escape routes toward their intended direction of movement. He estimated the range to the pursuing patrol at approximately 600 meters, well within his effective engagement distance. Through his rifle scope, Marcus identified the enemy patrol leader who was directing the tracking operation. Eliminating the leader would disrupt their coordination and slow their pursuit, even if it didn't stop them completely. He controlled his breathing and prepared for what might be the most important shot of his military career. The shot broke cleanly during Marcus's natural respiratory pause. Through his scope, he watched the enemy patrol leader drop immediately, confirming a successful hit. The remaining patrol members immediately took cover and began scanning for the source of the sniper fire. Marcus quickly moved from his firing position while the enemy soldiers attempted to locate him. The suppressor on his rifle had reduced the muzzle flash and noise signature, but professional soldiers would eventually determine the approximate direction of a shot through careful observation and analysis. Shot fired, target down, Marcus reported as he rejoined the team. They'll be looking for us, but their leader is eliminated. That should slow them down. The team resumed their movement with increased urgency. Enemy response to the sniper attack would include helicopter searches and additional ground patrols converging on their area. They needed to put maximum distance between themselves and the contact site before enemy reinforcements arrived. 2 hours after the sniper engagement, Marcus heard helicopter rotors approaching from multiple directions. Enemy search helicopters were responding to the shooting incident and beginning systematic searches of the surrounding terrain. The team took cover under natural camouflage while aircraft passed overhead using searchlights and thermal imaging equipment. Multiple aircraft conducting search operations. Marcus observed through his rifle scope. They're using thermal imaging, so our body heat signatures might be detectable through normal camouflage. Rodriguez led the team into a rocky cave formation that would mask their thermal signatures from airborne sensors. The hiding place was cramped and uncomfortable, but it provided essential concealment while enemy aircraft searched the immediate area for several hours. During their concealment period, Thompson's condition deteriorated noticeably. The injured pilot was developing signs of serious infection from his compound leg fracture, and their limited medical supplies were insufficient to treat his worsening condition. Without professional medical attention, Thompson might not survive another day in the mountains. "We need to get him to the extraction point tonight," Rodriguez told Marcus quietly. "He's not going to make it much longer without real medical treatment." Marcus understood the urgency, but he also recognized that moving too quickly might lead them into enemy positions. The pursuit forces would expect them to head for the extraction point and would likely establish ambush positions along the most direct routes. When the helicopters finally moved their search pattern to other areas, the team resumed movement toward their objective. Marcus helped carry Thompson while maintaining constant observation for enemy activity. Every shadow could conceal hostile forces, and every sound might indicate approaching danger. The final approach to the extraction point required crossing an open valley that offered little concealment from observation. Marcus studied the terrain through his rifle scope, identifying several positions where enemy forces might establish ambush sites. The crossing would be extremely dangerous, but avoiding it would add another full day to their movement. "I'll provide overwatch while you move the team across," Marcus suggested to Rodriguez. "If there are enemy forces waiting, I can engage them while you get Thompson to the extraction point." Rodriguez considered the proposal while studying his map of the area. The extraction point was located on high ground that would provide good helicopter landing access, but would also be an obvious target for enemy ambush forces. Someone needed to provide covering fire if the team was going to successfully reach the pickup site. "Negative," Rodriguez replied. "We all go together or none of us make it. I'm not leaving anyone behind to fight a delaying action alone." Marcus appreciated his team leader's loyalty, but he also understood military necessity. Thompson needed immediate medical evacuation, and the team's best chance of survival required someone to provide covering fire during the crossing. His rifle was their most effective weapon for engaging enemy forces at the ranges they might encounter. As dawn approached, the team prepared for what might be their final movement toward the extraction point. Marcus checked his remaining ammunition and confirmed his rifle zero while helping prepare Thompson for the dangerous crossing. Everything would depend on their ability to reach the helicopter landing site before enemy forces could intercept them. The crossing began 30 minutes before sunrise, using the last remaining darkness to mask their movement. Marcus moved with the team while maintaining rear-guard security, his rifle ready for immediate engagement of any enemy forces that might appear during their exposed movement across the valley floor. The team had covered 2/3 of the exposed valley floor when Marcus spotted muzzle flashes from the ridge overlooking the extraction point. Enemy forces had indeed established an ambush position exactly where he had predicted, and they were now engaging the exposed team with automatic weapons fire from a commanding position. Ambush front, Marcus shouted while diving for the minimal cover provided by scattered boulders. Bullets cracked overhead and struck the rocky ground around their position, sending up sprays of stone fragments that indicated the enemy was using high-velocity ammunition designed to defeat body armor. Rodriguez immediately began coordinating the team's response, while Marcus assessed the tactical situation through his rifle scope. He counted at least 6 enemy positions along the ridge, each occupied by 2 or 3 soldiers with crew-served weapons. The team was caught in a carefully planned killing zone with limited options for escape. "I need covering fire to engage the machine gun positions," Marcus called to Rodriguez. "If I can eliminate their heavy weapons, we might have a chance to reach the extraction point." The team's remaining personnel began returning fire with their assault rifles, while Marcus positioned himself for precision shots against the enemy machine gun crews. The range to the ridge was approximately 400 meters, well within his effective engagement distance despite the challenging circumstances. Marcus's first shot eliminated the gunner of the leftmost machine gun position. Through his scope, he watched the heavy weapon fall silent as the remaining crew members scrambled to replace their fallen comrade. His second shot took down the assistant gunner before he could take over the weapon. Enemy forces responded to the sniper fire by concentrating their remaining weapons on Marcus's position. Heavy machine gun rounds and rifle fire forced him to relocate while maintaining his engagement of the ambush positions. The rocky terrain provided adequate cover, but movement between positions exposed him to enemy observation. "Thompson's hit again," Martinez shouted from his position near the injured helicopter pilot. "He's bleeding bad and unconscious." Marcus realized that the already wounded pilot had been struck by enemy fire during the initial ambush. Without immediate medical evacuation, Thompson would certainly die in the next few minutes. The extraction helicopter needed to reach their position immediately, but landing under enemy fire would be suicide for the aircraft crew. "Command, this is Recon 6. Rodriguez transmitted through the satellite communication system. "We are under heavy fire at Extraction Point Alpha. Casualties require immediate medical evacuation. Request close air support." Static filled their radio earpieces before a weak signal came through the electronic jamming. "Recon 6 extraction bird. 5 minutes out, suppress enemy for landing." Marcus understood that an extraction helicopter was approaching their position, but it would need suppressive fire against the enemy ambush positions before it could safely land. His rifle was the team's most effective weapon for engaging targets at the necessary range, making him responsible for creating the conditions that would allow successful extraction. He identified the enemy command position where an officer was directing the ambush operation. Eliminating the commander would disrupt their coordination and reduce the effectiveness of their fire. The shot required precision at maximum range while under enemy fire, but Marcus had trained for exactly these circumstances throughout his military career. The bullet struck the enemy commander's center mass, dropping him instantly and causing immediate confusion in the ambush positions. Soldiers began looking around for new leadership while their rate of fire decreased noticeably. Marcus quickly shifted to another firing position and engaged the crew of the remaining machine gun. Helicopter rotors became audible in the distance as the extraction aircraft approached the landing zone. Marcus maintained his suppressive fire while the team prepared to load Thompson and move to the helicopter. The pilot would need to land quickly and take off immediately to avoid extended exposure to enemy fire. The extraction helicopter appeared over the ridge and immediately began taking fire from enemy positions. The aircraft's door gunners returned fire with mounted machine guns while the pilot maneuvered for landing approach. Marcus could see bullet impacts on the helicopter's fuselage as enemy rounds found their target. "Suppress the ridge positions," the pilot transmitted over the radio. "I can't land with that much incoming fire." Marcus engaged the enemy positions as rapidly as possible while maintaining accuracy at long range. Each shot required careful aim despite the pressure to fire quickly, but missing would waste ammunition without reducing the threat to the extraction helicopter. His training emphasized controlled precision rather than rapid volume of fire. Enemy fire slackened as Marcus eliminated individual shooters, but several positions remained active. The helicopter pilot made his landing approach while taking hits from remaining enemy weapons. Marcus could see that the aircraft was damaged, but still flyable as it touched down approximately 50 meters from the team's position. "Move! Move! Move!" Rodriguez shouted while the team began carrying Thompson toward the helicopter. Marcus maintained covering fire while his teammates exposed themselves to carry the critically wounded pilot across open ground to the aircraft. Enemy forces concentrated their fire on the team's movement, forcing Marcus to engage multiple targets simultaneously. He fired as rapidly as possible while maintaining sufficient accuracy to suppress enemy positions. His ammunition supply was running critically low, but the extraction was proceeding successfully despite enemy attempts to stop it. Martinez reached the helicopter first and began helping load Thompson into the aircraft's medical area. The door gunners provided covering fire while Rodriguez and the remaining team members ran across the open ground. Marcus continued engaging enemy positions until his teammates were safely aboard the helicopter. "Kane, let's go!" Rodriguez shouted from the helicopter's open doorway. "We're loaded and ready for takeoff." Marcus fired his final rounds at enemy positions before beginning his movement toward the aircraft. Enemy soldiers recognized that their targets were escaping and increased their rate of fire, forcing him to run in a serpentine pattern while crossing the exposed ground to the helicopter. Bullets cracked past his head and struck the ground around his feet as Marcus covered the final distance to the extraction aircraft. He dove through the helicopter's doorway just as the pilot began his takeoff procedure. The aircraft lifted off while still taking fire from enemy positions on the surrounding ridges. "Taking hits in the tail rotor," the pilot transmitted. "I don't know how long we can maintain controlled flight." Marcus looked through the helicopter's window and saw enemy soldiers continuing to fire at the aircraft as it gained altitude. Several rounds had obviously struck critical systems, and warning lights were illuminating on the pilot's instrument panel. The aircraft was flyable, but Marcus wasn't certain it would remain that way for the entire flight back to base. Chief Warrant Officer Thompson was unconscious and in critical condition from multiple gunshot wounds and his earlier injuries. The team's medic worked frantically to control bleeding while monitoring vital signs. Without immediate surgical intervention, Thompson would not survive the flight back to the medical facility. "How long to the hospital?" Marcus asked the crew chief over the aircraft's intercom system. 20 minutes if we can keep flying," the crew chief replied. "But we're losing hydraulic pressure, and the tail rotor is vibrating badly. The pilot's doing everything he can to keep us in the air." Marcus watched the instrument panel while the pilots fought to maintain control of the damaged helicopter. Multiple warning systems were indicating failures in critical flight systems, but the aircraft continued flying toward their base. Professional military aviators were trained to fly damaged aircraft under the most challenging circumstances. Rodriguez was coordinating with Command through the aircraft's radio system. "Command, this is Recon 6 aboard extraction aircraft. We have one priority casualty requiring immediate surgical intervention. Aircraft is damaged and may not complete flight to base." The response came back immediately. "Recon 6 medical team is standing by for immediate trauma surgery. Aircraft status is being monitored. Emergency landing sites are prepared if required." Marcus felt the helicopter shudder as the damaged tail rotor continued to deteriorate. The pilot was clearly struggling to maintain directional control, but the aircraft was still flying toward their destination. He had experienced emergency landings before and knew that military aircraft were designed to survive significant damage. 10 minutes into the flight, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Multiple hydraulic systems failed simultaneously, leaving the pilot with severely limited control authority. The helicopter began descending despite the pilot's attempts to maintain altitude, and Marcus realized they were going to make an emergency landing. Emergency landing. Emergency landing, the pilot transmitted. All passengers prepare for hard landing. We're going down. Marcus and the team braced themselves while the pilot attempted to control the helicopter's descent. Thompson was strapped to a medical stretcher, but the impact would likely worsen his already critical injuries. Emergency landings in damaged helicopters were survivable, but casualties were common. The helicopter struck the ground hard but remained upright. Marcus was thrown against the aircraft's bulkhead despite his safety harness, and he felt a sharp pain in his shoulder from the impact. Around him, other team members were checking for injuries while smoke began filling the passenger compartment. "Everybody out! Everybody out!" the crew chief shouted while opening the aircraft's emergency exits. "Fuel leak. Risk of fire." Marcus helped carry Thompson away from the crashed helicopter while the rest of the team evacuated their equipment. The aircraft's engines had shut down automatically, but leaking fuel created the danger of explosion or fire. They needed to get away from the wreckage immediately. The crash site was located in friendly territory approximately 8 kilometers from their base. Marcus could see military vehicles approaching in the distance, indicating that rescue forces had been dispatched immediately when the helicopter went down. Help was coming, but Thompson needed medical attention right now. "Medical evac inbound," Rodriguez announced after communicating with the approaching rescue convoy. "Thompson's going to make it." Marcus looked at the unconscious pilot and wondered if that assessment was accurate. Thompson had survived the helicopter crash, the mountain pursuit, the ambush, and now a second helicopter crash, but his injuries were severe and he had lost significant amounts of blood. Military medicine could work miracles, but there were limits to what was possible. The rescue convoy reached their position within 10 minutes of the crash. Medical personnel immediately began advanced life support procedures on Thompson while loading him into an armored ambulance. Marcus and the rest of the team were transported back to base in armed vehicles that provided security against possible enemy attack. At the base medical facility, Marcus received treatment for his shoulder injury, while Thompson underwent emergency surgery to save his life. The mission had been successful in gathering critical intelligence about enemy capabilities, but the cost had been enormous. One helicopter destroyed, one helicopter severely damaged, and multiple casualties among the participants. Colonel Harrison conducted the mission debrief in the hospital while Marcus's shoulder was being treated. "Gentlemen, your intelligence reports have provided crucial information about enemy capabilities and intentions. The facility you observe has been designated for immediate airstrikes based on your reconnaissance." Marcus felt satisfaction at learning that their mission had accomplished its objectives despite the challenges they had encountered. Intelligence gathering was often thankless work that produced no immediate visible results, but this mission had clearly provided information that would be used for future operations against enemy forces. "What's Thompson's status?" Rodriguez asked the colonel. "Critical, but stable," Harrison replied. "The doctors think he'll survive, but it's going to be a long recovery. He's being evacuated to the military hospital for specialized treatment." 3 days later, Marcus received orders transferring him to a new assignment with increased responsibilities. His performance during the reconnaissance mission and extraction had been noted by higher command levels, leading to selection for advanced sniper training and eventual assignment to special operations units. The mission in the mountains had tested every aspect of his military training and personal character. He had successfully performed his duties as a sniper while adapting to rapidly changing circumstances that threatened the survival of his entire team. Most importantly, he had maintained his composure and continued fighting effectively even when the situation appeared hopeless. 6 months later, Marcus learned that the intelligence his team had gathered had led to a major airstrike that destroyed the enemy supply facility and disrupted their operational capabilities for the remainder of the conflict. The mission had been worth the risks and casualties because it had prevented enemy operations that might have cost hundreds of American lives. Thompson eventually recovered from his injuries and returned to flight status after extensive rehabilitation. The helicopter pilot credited Marcus's sniper skills with saving the lives of everyone on the team by suppressing enemy forces during the critical extraction phase. Professional recognition from fellow service members was the highest honor any soldier could receive. Marcus's military career continued with increasingly challenging assignments that utilized his proven abilities under extreme circumstances. The reconnaissance mission had demonstrated that he possessed the combination of technical skills, physical conditioning, mental toughness, and moral courage required for the most demanding military operations. But Marcus had no way of knowing that his most challenging test was still ahead of him, in a place where even his exceptional skills would be pushed beyond their limits, and where he would face the ultimate choice between personal survival and military duty. The mountains had prepared him for what was coming, but preparation could only go so far when facing impossible odds.